Hello students, welcome to Saurabh's classes. In this video, I am going to talk about acceptance sampling. Acceptance sampling. Acceptance sampling uses the statistical sampling to determine whether to accept or reject a production lot of material. That is, in the industry, when you are producing a lot of product actually, then you have to decide whether you will accept the lot of the product or reject it, because that will be depending on the quality of the product. So it is that statistical sampling to determine whether to accept or reject the lot. This is known as acceptance sampling. So it has been a common quality control technique that is used in the industry. That is like in our industry we use many types of sampling method to test the quality of the product, but acceptance sampling is widely used in statistical industry. Now it is usually done as the products leaves the factory. That is, when the products leave the factory, this acceptance sampling is performed. Now we can say that most often a producer supplies a consumer a number of items, and a decision to accept or reject the items is made by determining the number of defective items in the sample, that is in the lot. So we can say that in the statistical industrial statistics, when an amount of product, that is a lot of product, is delivered to a customer by a producer, whether that lot will be accepted by the customer or rejected by him is accepted or rejected by him is dependent on the number of defective products in the lot. Now we can say that in general acceptance sampling is employed when one or several of the following points hold. What are the points? Number one is testing is destructive. Testing is destructive. Number two is the cost of 100% inspection is very high. Then point three is 100% inspection takes too long. 100% inspection takes too long. Now, while we are verifying the data, a wide variety of acceptance sampling are available. For example, multiple sampling plans can be considered, which has more than 2 samples to reach a conclusion about the lot of the productions. A shorter examination period and a smaller sample size are features of this type. So, features of this type plan are: number one is smaller sample size, and number two is shorter examination period. Now we can also say that acceptance sampling is an inspection procedure used to determine the rejection or acceptance of a specific quantity of material. As more firms initiate total quality management, that is TQM, sorry, I'll write it here, wait, let's delete this here. TQM, that is total quality management. So, as more firms initiate total quality management products and work closely with the suppliers to ensure high levels of the quality, the need for acceptance sampling decrease. The need for acceptance sampling decrease. And TQM is one of the main cause of the decrease of importance of acceptance sampling. So, however, in reality, many firms must still rely on checking their material inputs. Many firms still rely on checking their material inputs, So the basic process is very straightforward. I will be discussing it in a few points. Number one is a random sample is taken from a large quantity, and measured relative to the quality characteristic of interest. Number two is, if the sample passes the test, the entire quantity of items is acceptable. Number three is, if the sample fails the test, then either A, the entire quantity of items is subjected to 100% inspection, or the entire quantity is returned to the supplier, or the entire quantity is returned to the supplier. Now, I will be discussing the acceptance sampling plan decisions. Accepting, let me add a page first. acceptance sampling plan decisions. Sampling plan acceptance sampling involves both the procedure of the producer of the materials and the consumer. So the consumers need acceptance sampling to limit the risk of rejecting of good quality materials or accepting bad quality materials. Consequently, the consumer, sometimes in conjunction with the producer through contractual agreements or specifies the parameters. So basically the consumers need acceptance sampling to limit the risk of rejecting the good quality materials. Consequently, the consumer, sometimes in conjunction with the producer through contractual agreement, specifies the parameters of the plan. Now the producer's risk is the risk that the sampling plan will fail to verify an acceptable lot's quality. So producer's risk is the risk that the sampling plan will fail to verify an acceptable lot's quality and thus reject it. And this is a type 1 error. Now there is also type 2 error, and type 2 error is mainly the consumer's risk. So the consumer's risk is actually that risk which the consumer face while accepting the lot of the products. Consumer's risk is the risk that sampling plan will be accepted to verify an unacceptable lot's quality and thus accept it. This is actually type 2 error. Now there are mainly 3 types of sampling plan, that is single sampling plan, one is single sampling plan, then there is double sampling plan, and finally there is sequential sampling plan. Sequential sampling plan. So these 3 types of sampling plan are required for the acceptance sampling. As you can see from single sampling plan, it's very clear that in this case of sampling there is only one sampling plan. Double sampling plan are for those when the first sampling plan fails, and sequential sampling plan are for more than 2 sampling plans. That is, once one sampling plan fail, we will enable the other one for the ongoing of the procedure. Now let's talk about the sampling plans. First I will talk about single sampling plan. Single sampling plan is a decision rule to accept or reject a lot based on the results of one random sample from the lot. So, single sampling plan is a decision due to accept or reject a sampling based on result of one random sampling. Now, there are a few things you need to know about single sampling plan. First of all, the sample size is small n. Sample size is small n. Specified acceptance number, specified acceptance number is C, and the sample that are either repaired or returned to the producer in this case. Now, single sampling plan is easy to use, but it usually results in a larger ANI than the other plans. Now there is double sampling plan. So in this double sampling plan, management specifies two sample sizes and two acceptance number. So in this double sampling plan, the first sample is either accepted or rejected. Now, if it is rejected, then we will consider another sample. If it is rejected, we consider another sample. And depending on that, we decide if we need to accept or reject the lot. Then there is sequential sampling plan. Sequential sampling plan. In sequential sampling plan, we can say that it is a further refinement of the double sampling plan. So, in this case, each time the item is inspected, a decision is made. Each time an item is inspected, and a decision is made. And a decision is made. An inspection procedure used to determine whether to accept or reject the specific quantity of materials. Now, the quality level desired by the consumer must be verified in this sequential sampling plan. So, this is all about sampling plans. I have already discussed the different sampling plans with you, and also what is the needs of acceptance sampling and how it works. Hope this helped in your preparation for ISS and UPSC, and you will be given more of the solutions and videos in our next session. So stay tuned and keep checking our channel. Thank you.